Located in West Virginia, Lake Shawnee was an amusement park that opened to the public in 1926. Unfortunately, the park had experienced a handful of deaths, including a swing ride accident involving a little girl and a drowning of a little boy. The amusement park was eventually abandoned in 1966. The land on which the park sits on has a dark history that dates back to the 1700s. A man by the name of Mitchell Clay purchased the property and raised his family on an 800-acre farm. Disaster struck the Clay family in 1783 when a Native American tribe slaughtered two of his children, with one being burned alive. It was later discovered that the park rests on an ancient burial ground that is full of human remains, which mostly consists of children's skeletons, and experts believe they were there long before the Clay family purchased the land. Northern State Hospital was once the largest institution in the state of Washington that housed individuals with mental illness. It initially opened its doors in the year 1911 and quickly became the largest mental asylum in the state. The asylum held a respectable reputation, but the experiments that were carried out on the patients that resided there painted a different picture. Many were subjected to all kinds of experimental procedures such as lobotomies, electroshock therapy, insulin therapy, and sedated with heavy drugs. Not all who were admitted to the asylum suffered from extreme mental illness. In fact, it was not uncommon for rebellious teens, women going through menopause, and depressed individuals to get sent to the asylum and be subjected to all kinds of experiments. Eventually, word began to circle of the experimental procedures being conducted on the patients, and the asylum was eventually abandoned in 1976 due to loss of funding. Located in North Carolina, Ghost Town in the Sky was a popular Wild West-themed amusement park. The park rests on top of Buck Mountain and was a huge attraction during the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Due to it sitting on top of a mountain, visitors would have to ride a chairlift in order to get to the amusement park. Ghost Town was divided into sections that each had a different style. There was a mining town, a mountain town, an Indian village, and the Old West town. The amusement park had saloons, live music, rides, and a train that would carry visitors around the park. Ghost Town had closed in 2002 due to some visitors getting stuck on the chairlift, but was briefly reopened in 2007. Due to a massive mudslide and financial issues, the park was shut down once more. Since then, there have been several attempts to get the park reopened, but for one reason or another, they haven't been successful. Many consider the park cursed due to its inability to reopen after many failed attempts, and the park remains abandoned to this day. Opened in 1829, Eastern State Penitentiary was built to reform how prisoners were treated at the time. Back in the 1700s and 1800s, it wasn't uncommon for prisons to house men, women, and children together. As a result, abuse by both jailers and fellow inmates was common. Eastern State Penitentiary attempted to change the prison philosophy by housing each inmate in solitary confinement to avoid interactions with other inmates, and also so the prisoners could reflect on their crimes and read the Bible. Inmates that had been admitted to the prison were required to wear an eyeless hood over their heads, and anytime they were outside their cells, they had to wear a mask to conceal their faces. They were not allowed to have any interaction with other inmates, nor were they allowed to have any interaction with outside friends and family. Although the prison was built to change how prisoners were treated, physical punishment did exist. During the winter, prisoners would be drenched in water, then hung outside on a wall until ice would form on their skin. Another physical punishment was prisoners were strapped tightly for days until circulation was cut off, and then there is also the infamous block number 14. Under block number 14, there was an underground cell known as the Hole. Here, inmates would be housed alone for weeks at a time with no sunlight and only given bread and water. During its time of operation, the prison had seen several murders of both jailers and inmates alike, and eventually was closed in 1970 due to numerous riots and overcrowding.